Hi, my name is Kai Chan, a financial consultant, creator, and your host of the Creative Heart Show. This is a podcast where I sit with amazing people and explore what it means to live a fulfilling life. In today's episode, I sit with Nikko Pasqua, an accomplished art director and food photographer whose works, honestly, just make you drool all over. I know they did for me. We talked about his photography journey, as well as going deep into his thoughts surrounding other genres like street and travel photography. Enjoy the show. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Creative Heart Show. This is episode 7. It's been a long time since I actually uploaded an episode. I apologize for that. I think the last episode, what I was actually telling Nikko, was probably about 1.5 years ago, right before the pandemic actually got pretty intense in Singapore. However, here we are. I'm actually very excited to bring the podcast back. In fact, for the next couple of episodes, just to let you guys know, I'll be focusing on some of the people in the creative industry. And I'm very stoked, very honored. Today, for this episode, I have Nikko Pasqua.
Hi everyone.
Thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Of course. Thank you also for having me.
So just a little bit about Nikko before I actually pass it on so that he can actually share about himself. Nikko is actually a professional art director and food photographer, also an accomplished street as well as travel photographer.
Not accomplished, but a street photographer nonetheless.
He's very modest. Definitely received numerous awards, even got featured on, for the Sony fanboys out there, he's been featured on Jason Vong's YouTube channel. He will get into that a little bit later on.
Oh, we will? Okay.
Yeah, more than,
We'll see.
Feel free.
Okay.
Feel free. And then his very cinematic shots of Singapore scenes were also featured on Mothership as well as Marshare News.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. So, and also just a little bit of backstory, right, about how we actually got to know each other is that funny story is that Nikko and I never knew each other through any of our mutual friends.
Correct.
No mutual friends at all. In fact, basically, if you guys know a little bit about me, I am super into anything and everything Japan, Japanese culture, Japanese language, anime, and of course, traveling to Japan. So it was one of those forums I remember on Facebook where I chanced upon Nikko's travel photos, where he traveled to Hokkaido as well as Tokyo and Osaka. They were so cinematic, just gorgeous body of work.
Thank you for saying that.
Nostalgic. And I also want to get into that because I remember that was the first contact that I actually had any, get to know his work, right? So that was when I actually got to know him. Of course, I left comments and then we actually hit up each other. We follow each other on socials. Then I realized that, hey, we are both actually from Singapore. So why not we actually met up and then we did. And I realized that he's a very chill dude, very willing to share about his experience and things like that. So, I think this episode will have lots to actually really learn from him. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
Okay.
So, first off, why don't we actually start with Nikko? Let's go back a little bit to your origin story. Like, share with us a little bit about, the city that you grew up in, and basically how you first, realized that you have this passion for photography, or maybe the first memory of you coming into a contact with your first camera.
Ooh, okay. So I grew up in Manila, and so I pretty much, Manila as in high school, uni, and then I worked in advertising for 2 years. I was working on brands like Nissan, Mr. Donut, Del Monte, and a few others. And then, but ever since, I've always known that it felt to me like advertising was just a stepping stone.
Okay.
For me to to really just learn the ropes, how the industry works, but eventually move full time into doing photography. But in terms of your question of when was my first contact with the camera?
Yeah, like when you were young. Let's just go there.
I think that my really first memory with the camera was my family just went on a day trip to a resort. So
Okay.
everyone was like, someone was definitely like taking photos.
Okay.
And then at the end of that, we got home and I was just fiddling with the camera and just being amazed. Like the film wasn't there anymore, so it's
How young were
safe.
you at this
Oh,
point?
I think maybe 4 or 5 years old.
Okay.
But I've always been fascinated, like looking through the viewfinder, that kind, and just really wondering, how does this thing work?
And this was film camera, right?
Yeah.
Or
I mean,
were you
those
born
like
in the digital age?
no. It was still film, definitely. So like,
Just trying to, because I actually don't know how old he is. I
Oh.
only know that he's much younger than me, definitely.
but yeah, so it was definitely like with the film camera, like your typical family film camera kind. Yeah, so there's been that fascination ever since.
Okay.
But I didn't get my first camera until I entered uni 2008. When I entered uni, my mom got me a digital camera.
Nice.
Although it had like manual settings, like it's not just a point and shoot.
Yeah.
It's still very much a point. Canon called it a semi-pro line. It
What
was
camera was it?
PowerShot SX100.
Okay, the PowerShot series.
Yeah. So I was using that. Although before that, it was like the days of Multiply. When so back in high school, Multiply was still a thing, and I had a classmate who always brought his camera with him, but he doesn't take photos with it.
Okay.
So every time we have like any school activity, I'm the one using it and just taking photos.
Okay.
But initially, it was just for content because I wanted a lot of like photos in my Multiply page.
Okay, I see.
But I didn't mind being behind the camera, not being in the photos.
Okay.
I was okay with that. Really just capturing moments, documenting stuff. And then it just progressed from there. So 2008, I got my own camera. And then
At this point of time, when you say moments, you mean that you were taking pictures of general moments?
yeah, like
or-
just really general.
Okay.
It wasn't very intentional at that point because maybe it's a bad thing, but like growing up, I don't know if it's the same for Singaporean families or Malaysian families, but like for Filipino families, usually they don't encourage you going into the arts. Like there's not much money in it, they say.
That's the same pretty much everywhere for our generation.
Okay, so like
I mean, at least I feel so. Lah.
So I also had that thinking.
Okay.
So like even in 2008, I was initially an English major.
Okay.
I had my camera and then just taking photos. I would meet like fine arts majors or film majors, and I've always wondered to myself then, oh my God, what are you gonna be doing after you graduate?
Yeah.
And cut to here I am. Wondering also where to get my money. Yeah, but I mean, it started from there. 2008, I didn't get my DSLR until 2011, my first DSLR.
2011.
But yeah, so 2000 again from 2008 to 2011, I was just shooting a lot of stuff, really just documenting stuff. I was trying to be artsy every now and then because my camera had manual settings anyways.
Yes.
It had manual focus. I was aware I wanted to get some bokeh
Okay.
here and there, but nothing too intentional, nothing like leaning towards me wanting to do paid gigs
Understand.
yet.
So basically, like probably like you and a couple of your friends who are interested in the same thing, and then you guys were like experimenting, taking pictures of like
Correct.
general moments.
Yeah.
Because this was a period where you guys were like studying things that had absolutely nothing related with photography whatsoever.
Yeah, you can say that. Although, like,
Okay.
there had, I mean, thinking about it now, there had to be like some level of consciousness about like the technical side of it because it had a manual setting, so I had to learn what shutter speed, aperture, ISO, all were.
So everyone were pretty much like self-taught and like learning from each other.
At that point, no, actually.
Or were you like learning on your own?
No, yeah, it was pretty much me because like in my group of friends then, I mean, I was the artsy person. But I've always been inclined to like the art, so I'm the one who like draws a lot at the same time. So when it got to photography, I mean, they naturally just assign that role to me because they knew that I was creative one way or another.
So you drew a lot as a kid as well.
Yes. So like a lot of like anime stuff, doodling,
Nice.
back in high school, and even primary. Yeah.
Cool.
And then, 2011 when I got my first DSLR is when I started taking things a bit more seriously.
Okay.
Mm.
Okay.
Uh,
When you meant serious, right? At this point, because you were still studying your English major, right? You were just. You were
Oh no.
Or
when did
you were after?
Sometime in 2010, I shifted to fine arts, visual communication.
Okay. So this is the part that I want to actually get into a little bit because I want to know like what made the switch. Like you were from English and like was it because of photography that actually made you realize at this point in time that hey, there is actually something here and that's where you wanted to explore?
Okay, it's kind of funny because and not as exciting.
Okay.
But the thing is like,
No worries.
because when I was doing, I went to a review center for like college admission tests, and I got a tip that if you try to go for like the programs that are not as popular, like say business administration or marketing, then it's easier for you to get into that uni. And the thing is, I really wanted to get into this uni, so I took English.
Okay, I see.
But at that point, in my head, I wanted to shift to mathematics because my mom was working in insurance then. She was with Sony Life.
Oh, okay.
And she was telling me about all these actuaries who are earning good money.
Okay.
And I'm like, maybe I'll do actuarial science afterwards.
Right. That was like the practical thing to do.
And then again, versus like thinking that also like wondering what my film major friends are going to do after they graduate, right? So that was the whole thing.
Okay.
And I remember taking my second semester, first year in uni, I was taking math, college algebra.
Okay.
And then I also had a general education class on geography. Surprisingly, the final requirement for the geography exam was a magazine.
Okay.
So like documenting what we did throughout the whole semester.
Okay.
And then so it was final season, and I ended up really staying late at night doing the magazine versus studying for my finals for my college algebra class.
Right.
Which is what I needed to be able to shift to math.
Right.
I ended up pretty much, I don't know if like Singapore or Malaysia would have it, but in my uni we have like a grading where it becomes conditional. Like you have to take another test to either pass or fail.
Okay.
So I went into conditional, and then I had to take like another test just to pass that class. I mean, it was that bad.
Okay.
But I ended up getting an A plus for the geography class because of the magazine and all. So at that point, I realized I can't deny anymore the fact that I want to pursue something related to the arts.
So this was like a aha moment.
I think you can say
Like
that.
the first aha.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's when I knew that instead of like kidding myself trying to shift to math or statistics, that I should embrace this.
Right.
And really shift instead to a fine arts course.
Okay. So that's when you did that
But
switch.
it didn't take me, it took me a total of 3 tries before I got into fine arts because they have a talent test and stuff going on.
Right.
It took me a while. So that's a whole different story altogether.
So I'm not very familiar with fine arts because I graduated as an economics student as well. So yeah, I only have a little bit of passion in photography. So that's how, it's the line is drawn there for me personally. But when you talk about fine arts, right, the course that you actually went into, is this like a general fine arts thing or is it like a fine arts
I see.
specialized in photography, anything of that
Okay.
sort? Yeah.
At least for my university, the College of Fine Arts has like 2 departments. Either you go visual communication side or you go studio arts. Studio arts is where you go like really hardcore fine arts, painting, sculpting, whatever else might be there. for visual communication, it's either you do industrial design or visual communication. So I did visual communication, which is pretty much
sense.
like a blanket of all the different disciplines, except studio arts. That's a different thing altogether.
Right. Okay.
So we covered from editorial to advertising. We only actually had photography classes in second year of uni for 1 year, and then after that, nothing.
Right. So uni was from 2000.
I mean, 2000. I stayed in uni for like a good 7 years. It's a long time. Even I mean, my uni is known for students staying for a long time.
Oh,
but
okay.
7 years is also long.
Oh, is that
like
the
usually
standard?
people usually the standard is 4 years.
Right. That's what I thought.
Some would extend to like 5.
Okay.
You do 6, you're like, okay, you're enjoying your time here. You go 7, oh my god, get out, please.
So you stay 7 years. Like, is there a difference? Like, so that like 5th, 6th, 7, like, is just doing different kind of projects. Like, how does it work? Is it something like a
Okay, so I entered
Master's
2008,
equivalent?
right? I only got to shift in 2010.
You only got to shift in 2010? Okay.
Yeah, so that's like 2 years already wasted. I mean, wasted because only pretty much my minor subjects were
Yes.
credited.
Okay.
But I think like towards me doing year 6, the 6th and 7th year, I was still in uni. I was already doing internships here and there because I had like just my thesis class.
Okay.
So there was even a semester where I would only go to class like every Saturday. And so Monday to Friday, I was already doing an internship program for the agency where I eventually ended up working. So I mean, it was a good use of time, I would say. I mean, even though I stayed technically for 7 years.
Right. So let me get this straight. Your uni years effectively in the visual communications for fine arts is 2010 to 2017.
2015. So that's
Sorry.
total 5
So,
years.
Okay, so the 2 years that you were talking about is before the switch. Perhaps I actually misunderstood that. Okay, so 5 years, so 2010 to 2015, and then cut to 2012. That's where, because I remember what you were sharing, he actually did a webinar at TEDx SG before. If you guys have never watched that, please go and search it out. That's where he actually goes into like a little bit more of technical details, how to do food photography and all that.
Correct.
You can actually search that on YouTube. Just type in Nikko Pasqua TEDSG. That should actually come out. But in any case, when I was actually doing a research, I remember, and also I was there at a webinar that you mentioned that in 2012, you're one of your best friends in Manila asked you, hey, my family actually has a family restaurant serving Japanese food. Come and take photos. So let's get into that. So at that point of time, this friend is also like a uni classmate? Or like,
From high school.
Okay.
So we go way back.
Okay. So he knows that you actually have all this interest in photography.
Yeah.
But at this point of time, food photography, was it like already your thing, or like were you still taking like general moments of stuff?
It wasn't.
Okay.
I think so. 2011, I got my DSLR, right? So I was in my university organization. I was the one like taking photos every time we have an event. Anyone needs a profile photo for a campaign or whatever that we're doing, they would go to me. So it was a bit of everything, and also continuing with like what I was doing with my old camera. It's just documenting stuff here and there, even like with friends. When we're out and about.
Okay.
But yeah, when my one of my best friends reached out, asked me to take photos. To be honest, like at that time, I also didn't know what I was doing. It was so funny because at least I knew that I needed like some form of light.
Okay.
To be able to get like okay photos. And then I remember we were using like your usual bond paper. What do you call it?
What's that?
No. What's the term? What do we call it? Just
For the
like
backdrop?
no, just your usual copy paper.
Okay.
I was using it as a fill, like as a reflector.
Okay.
Because we didn't really have anything at the time.
It's basically an A4 paper.
An A4 paper. Yeah, there you go.
No worries.
Okay, and then so we were. I think we pretty much shot everything from the menu that day. So I mean, his dad knew me, so he was just churning out all the food, and then at the end of everything, when all the food was out, done shooting, he was just, Nikko, feel free to choose whichever you want, and then you eat. As in, whichever you want, how many ever you want, just go for it.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, I want this, I want this, I want to try this. And then I had a good time that day.
Okay.
As I was going through the photos, I realized that, hey, this is actually fun. I get to be behind the camera, look through the viewfinder, be clicking, and also get to eat.
Yeah.
That was a free gig, definitely. But yeah, I mean, being fed good food.
And mind you, I think at this point of time, 2012, I think pretty much the same as Manila as well, but correct me if I'm wrong. This was like, for the rest of the world, around 2012 was like the rise of Instagram.
Correct.
People were like starting to take photos with their phone, but you were like, I'm taking with my DSLR.
Correct.
So, like, this was the time that you really got serious into like photography.
I think,
and it's not because like, oh, there's this Instagram thing that I'm like, you know.
No. I think also because 2011, when I got my DSLR, right, was also the time when we had that photography class for 1 year. So essentially, that was the part where I was formally trained with photography. Like, I have a professor-student relationship, teaching about visual perception, all these different elements that you can explore with photography at the same time. Technique-wise, learning a bit about lighting, doing film photos for the first semester, and then moving to digital in the second semester. So it made sense for me to also take things a bit more seriously and get into it a bit more.
Makes sense.
And so that was in 2012, and then from there, I thought to myself that, okay, maybe then I can focus on food photography.
Okay.
But it's not like I stopped doing other kinds of photography.
Right. What were the other kinds of photography that you were doing?
Still the same. So like taking profile photos for my organization, or just documenting events.
So at that point of time, you already had some paid gigs? Like,
No. I think maybe like later in the year, in 2012, is when eventually some my org mates, since they know I take photos here and there, we have a family business as well. Can you help take photos for this and that?
That's how
so that's how the paid gigs started coming in, but nothing too proper, I'd say.
Okay. Then after that, 2015 happened, and then when you started your internship.
Actually, I first did a couple of internships in different ad agencies before I did my stint with Pepper.ph. It's a food blog. I've known them since like 2012. So there was actually even like fanboy moments whenever I'd meet finally the people behind the blog.
I apologize because I didn't know about Pepper before this, because I think they are huge in Philippines.
In the Philippines, yes.
So like they are a big deal. Like, saying, like in
I mean, I might be biased, but I want to say like they're probably the best food blog if you ask me.
Okay.
So in the Philippines, I mean, there are a few others, but in terms of like quality of content, for me it was Pepper.
Okay.
So yeah, and again, ever since knowing them from 2012, I've always like had that certain admiration for the blog, the kind of photography, especially that at the time it was Mylene Chong who was the head photographer at the time. So
this was like a huge deal for internship for you.
When I did that in 2015, yes, definitely. As in, I was just geeking out when I went into Mylene's studio and I saw her props library. As in, it was like dreamland.
Okay.
I think
So
it
you
was
get to play with every single
it was the same as me my first time stepping into Shibuya Scramble. I'm like,
Where like everything is exciting and you are lost at the same time, right? That kind of mixed feelings, right? So at that point of time when you were having an internship with Pepper, what role were you given? Like you already had your role, like you were given the chance to like take photos of food every day.
It was a very good internship opportunity because they really assign you to different assignments and you do your own thing.
Oh, okay.
I had a senior photographer then who would guide me every now and then. Like I think every now and then she would pop up. Pam Santos, she would pop up in some of the shoots and just see what was I doing, and then just be guiding me. And also like with editing, guiding me, oh Nikko, this needs a bit more punch, you need to do this and that. So that kind of guidance. But it was pretty much my own thing. Even like when we do shoots in the studio, they would let me choose which surfaces to use, which vessels to use.
Okay.
So that was a really fun time.
Okay.
I still cherished those months that I was with Pepper.
Because that was like truly probably the beginning of
as in it got even more serious after that. Yeah.
And then how do you get your current role now with FoodNews?
Which is through Pepper as well. I did Pepper. They eventually got me to do a bit more of work after my internship because in the Philippines, internships are usually 1-2 months, 2 months at most.
Okay.
It's not like here where it's like 6 months, right? 3 months. So I did 2 months with them and then they got me for a few more months before I decided that, okay, I'll join the agency and do it full time. Okay. So I left Pepper and then I was doing agency full time, but one of my previous bosses, who was then editor-in-chief of Pepper, eventually moved to Singapore and joined the same agency but in the Singapore office. So we were in the same network, and one day I was just in the office, agency office, doing my thing, and then she chatted me in the Facebook Workplace Messenger, and I was like, oh my God, you moved, blah 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 blah. So I mean, we were still in touch throughout my whole stint with the agency, and I think February 2017, I visited Singapore second time, and in my head, I was like, must be nice to work here. Efficient public transportation, lots of talent coming in from all over the world.
So the first experience in Singapore?
My second.
Second.
Because my first time in 2014, it was just with my mom and my younger brother, so it was just a very touristy kind.
Okay.
With my girlfriend, it was a much more local experience.
Okay.
So in my head, I thought it must be nice to work here. May 2017, so like a few months after, that ex-boss of mine, who left the agency and joined the agency where I am in now, she chatted me and said like, okay, my boss might be looking for an art director / photographer, and I immediately thought of you. I was wondering if it's something that you want to explore.
Right.
So cut to July 2017, we were already applying for my work pass.
Right.
So
when you heard that news, you were like, yes, without
definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
For sure. So I mean, I think it all worked out. Like, because also if I didn't stay 7 years in uni, I wouldn't have the time to do my internship with Pepper.
Exactly.
And then through that connection is how I ended up here.
Okay, so let's pause for that. Second chapter is what I would call it. Let's just summarize what you were actually talking about earlier on. Basically, you started off with a completely different major back in uni, and then after that you switched to visual arts, visual communications, fine arts, and then you got your internship and all that. I'd like to know, because you started off the podcast saying that just like many other families out there, doing photography is like parents are just basically, concerned. I mean, they actually mean well. Basically, things like, art, photography, you sure? Will you have enough, to actually put food on your table kind of thing? So at this point of time, like, when you finally got your role, secure a role, and finally got the opportunity to come to Singapore and start the role with FoodNews, how were your parents taking it at this point of time? Were they like, okay, photography, it's something that you like and it's showing some results, go for it kind of thing?
Surprisingly, I think when I told them earlier on, like even because I think if you tell them that you want to shift to an art degree, they pretty much know what's in store.
Okay.
But they were actually quite supportive, surprisingly. Like, okay, if this is really what you want to be doing, then go for it.
Okay.
I don't know, like maybe they figured like one way or another you just have to figure out how you're going to get by.
Okay.
But at the same time, again, because I was still in uni and I was doing some paid gigs here and there, so they knew that money was coming in some form. So I think they had that at least at the back of their minds that, one way or another I'm earning something. So when I told them that, I actually only told them that I'm moving to Singapore when my pass got approved already. I didn't tell them anything before. I mean, it's just Singapore. It's just a 3-hour flight from Manila. So like, I'll be near. So I'm sharing the same time zone as you guys. So they were okay with it. So they were supportive along the way. To be fair.
Cool. So let's get into, let's turn on a little bit of a full nerd mode on food photography. Tell us, in terms of food photography, like what do you find most exciting about your job, like right now? Now that you've done like close to 4 years now?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Close to 4 years now. I think the most exciting part for me is cracking briefs. Like figuring out, okay, based from what you've told me, I feel like this is the look that you want to be going for.
Okay.
You want to build this kinds of sets and do this kind of styling, do this kind of light, and eventually executing the whole thing. So I think, pretty much the whole process of creating, of working briefs. I think that's the most exciting part.
Cool.
But also, it's fun once you, the challenge of making sure that your food photos actually entice the viewers.
Right.
Like if you know you're making something that will get people hungry, once I see that, that always gets me going.
Okay. So that's nice. I'm sure that's true, but we want to go a little bit deeper. We want to get a little bit more vulnerable. We want to get real.
Okay.
Because let's just be real. Cause although we have our passions, right? Most of the time, when your passion becomes your job, sometimes it can get a little bit. You start to see it like just a job. So I want to find out, because I don't think you are like that, because I can still feel that vibe of you, But I just want you to share it in your own words, right? Like after 4 years, doing food photography, I have absolutely no idea, as someone that's out of the industry. Like after 4 years of doing it, right? Would you say that your passion for food photography it's even more than how you started with, or like right now, like how does it feel right now in terms of like food photography for you?
It's not like every now and then. Definitely there are like, okay, one day, for example, a few days every now and then where I would feel like, okay, this is a job. But the good thing about being a photographer in general is you always get a really good brief every now and then. So that always makes things exciting, because you get a good brief, you have an amazing shoot, amazing photo set after that. So it never gets to a point where it's just all very dry. At least for me, that's how I feel like There are times also where, okay, like a month or two straight with no good brief, it's a bit of the same thing. What you've done before, you just do again for us. Then sometimes it can get stale. But the challenge with that is also making sure that you're consistent. So like that's a time for you to, at least for me, to like streamline my workflow even more, making sure it's up to standard with what I was doing before. Because like, again, some clients just require consistency, for example. So again, to answer, there are some days, but there are far and few.
Right. And of course, we're actually going to be talking about like street and travel photography later part of the show. But if I were to ask you to, evaluate for yourself, like, because you still do other genres of photography, would you say that food photography it still would be your top pick that excites you most?
I think it's. I don't think I can compare genres. I mean the genres that I do.
Okay.
But because the thing is, I started doing travel and street stuff because I wanted to find a creative outlet in the sense that I get to do whatever look I want. Because I mean, when you're doing photography as your full-time job, the drawback, quote unquote, is that you have to answer to a brief. It may be exciting, but also you have to answer to it. You still have to cater to what the client needs. It still has to be
You have certain boundaries
marketable
to work with.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it still needs to be at a certain commercial level.
Makes sense.
Versus like with my travel and street stuff, it's really just me exploring. Okay, this is how I see things. I just want to do this. I wanna edit this photo this way, that way, however I want to explore it.
Right.
Which also helps inform how I approach my food photography afterwards.
Right.
So it's just like my travel and street stuff, I get to play around a bit more. Because with my food stuff, there are clients paying you. So
would you say that exploring all these other genres of photography, you bring across some of the elements from those genres back to your food photography? Like,
to be honest, to me,
it kind of brings a certain new perspective, perhaps? I'm not sure. Is it?
As to how I view it, actually, they're almost very different for me. That's why I also have two accounts. I have my Nikko Pasco account, right, and then my Other Than Food account.
Yes.
Because again, I'm trying to separate them because maybe it's the art director in me that's trying to compartmentalize these things. Like I know, okay, because again, these clients have certain expectations. So like, okay, then everything goes into that account, my food photography stuff. But for everything else that, just me exploring, playing around, doing whatever.
Your playground.
Yeah. So that's where I do my the Other Than Food account. It's not like it's not like I don't get to play with food, with my food stuff, because again, once you get a good brief, then it's definitely super fun. As in, even like just figuring out, I mean, because since I didn't grow up here in Singapore, so like discovering all these places where I need to like source stuff, that's also very fun for me.
So I looked through your photos, actually long before this, and the photos that really stood out to me from your Nikko Pasco account was number one, the SG cocktail festival. Every single drink is like, I just want to drink that.
Okay, thank you.
That's the one. Two, because I love Japanese food, from your website, there was this shoot that you actually did for like, I think a sushi restaurant.
That's Shokua. Wow. Apparently the only two Michelin star sushi restaurant in Singapore.
Really nice. Like,
and really good food, but also expensive.
Sure. I'm sure like the uni, I remember, and probably if my memory serves me right, I think it was a maguro, or was it Ika, with this
Yes,
swish.
Ika.
That's really good. Like even the portraits of like the sushi chefs, like how you put them, how you frame them, I thought
Thank
that
you.
was like really refreshing to see. Like it was not just like a shoot.
Actually, to that sense, because I know that frame you're talking about.
Yes.
That was definitely informed by my perspective with like street stuff. That's the it almost is very like Wes Anderson contemporary kind, where it's like just dead front, right?
Yes.
And then having
But usually, like when I don't know, like if I recall from my memory, most like photos of like people and it's like a commercial style shoot, it's a restaurant, they will line them up like, you know, perhaps uniformly and things like that. Not to say that your frame was not uniform, but it just looks refreshing when you put them in the angle, like, you know.
yeah, which was then
very nice.
then I mean I'm kind of changing my answer here, but yeah, definitely I'm only realizing this now. That definitely okay, one
Maybe
way or
it's more
another.
from a third person point of view.
Yeah, then definitely then I guess my travel street stuff also
Perhaps.
yeah, one way or another, but it's not like strict, it's not a food photo, it's
Yes.
a portrait.
It's a portrait.
But definitely inspired by
Yeah, that's very interesting. Very cool. And then what's next that I want to talk about? Okay. Oh yeah. So about food photography, we're still in food photography. I know you do a lot of commercial projects, but I just want to check with you and confirm with you on this point. You do personal projects for food as well, right? Like personal, like just your own experiment.
every now and then, like but
Sometimes your IG
that's a
stories,
lie. I mean, to
yes.
be honest, it's been a long time since I last shot something like for me, food wise, just for fun.
Because you've done that a lot for work, so
I think yes. The last time, I think the last time I did that was like mid-autumn last year. But yeah, so 1 year now that I haven't done it.
oh, the mid-autumn photo is your own personal.
The mooncake one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that one's your personal work. Right? Oh, okay. So every now and then, like whenever you feel that, you know, there's something that you want to do, like something that you have in mind, that's where you actually do it.
Yeah, and that hasn't come for a
Okay.
bit now.
Yeah, but when you do, right, I want to understand, right, how you feel versus doing your own professional work, right? Like, how do you feel during that moment when you're in the zone doing your own personal project? Food photography wise.
How do I feel? I think it's also
is it still-
exciting, in the sense that I come up with my own brief. I figure out on my own how I feel like I'd want to be presenting this dish or that. Yeah, so I guess there's less expectations, but since I'm used to that certain level of expectation, then I try to do that also even for whenever I shoot like personal food stuff,
Okay.
just at home.
I see. Would you say that we are about to cross into travel and street photography next? But I just thought that because right now we're actually talking about this, right? It struck me, but I've never actually asked you this. Would you say that you're a very structured and detail-oriented person? Like you would, even when you're your own personal project, you come up with your own brief. Like it's a discipline that you do because you know it comes with the job, or like this is just part of you. Why I say this is because okay, we might as well actually get into this. The first time when we actually met up at Mellower Coffee, and then we were like, you know, happily talking about our recent Japanese travels, like Japan travels back then. And then you were like excited, yeah, I went to these places and things like that. And then we would start to talk about our itinerary, where we actually went. And then this guy, Nikko, showed me a PDF because I was like, oh yeah, sure, share with me your itinerary. I'm looking forward to it. What he showed me was more than an itinerary. What he showed me was an itinerary plus all the locations that he would actually bring his girlfriend go, right? At that point of time. Not just that, on top of the locations, right, what were the color schemes of that location? For example, whether it is blue, green, you know, like because it was Sakura season.
Your color scheme for what you should wear.
Yes, correct. So there were the color scheme of the location plus the color scheme of the wardrobe styling. And he actually structured with like, you know, like a few color samples all together in that PDF for his mental visual. All that crammed, not crammed, structurally put, all right? And then when I saw that, I was like, wow, I've never actually thought of like doing this before. So that's why I wanted to ask, right? Does it come with like training of your job, or like were you always like that, like detail oriented?
I think if I see that it's surprisingly, it's not always the case.
Okay.
It's just that whenever like I would tackle something, a project or whatever, a trip, if I see that there's room to be organized or a way for me to present stuff that people can absorb things better, I do it. I mean, with my art direction background, right? If you're in a big agency, everyone's taking care of their own stuff. That things just work. That I don't have to take care of the organization part. Like I have my accounts people for that. I have my print producers for that. But like now that I'm doing I mean pretty much so. For my photography, I would do my own pre-production organizers and all that stuff, right? So there's still a certain level of being organized, but it's not always the case, to be honest. It's just that when I really get into it, I get into it.
Yeah. So these were like I feel like these were like probably the example of moments based on how much I actually know you. Like these are the pockets where I can see that, man, this guy's passion in photography is there. Like, you know, like the amount of detail that he actually puts in, and he probably is not even aware. Like you can actually probably feel like based on how he's actually, you know, answering, like the passion is there, but it's just like it's second nature to you. That's what I'm trying to say. Personally, for me, that's how I feel.
I see. I mean, I also wouldn't know how this is all looking like. So,
but it was pretty cool. Like I was telling him, like, you know, this PDF, right? Why don't you just compile it in a book and I probably sell it on Amazon?
You're not the first person to ask me to sell it.
Okay, let's get into travel and street photography. Those of you who actually know his photos, if you were to follow his social, so his social, just now he was actually talking about it a little bit, is that main Instagram account is Nikko Pasqua, and then that's where all the food pictures live, and then the non-food pictures is in a second account which aptly named as Other Than Food, so you can just look for it. His photos based on as a friend consuming his content, it's very cinematic. Like every single frame just looks like a frame from a movie, like a documentary. Like if you are watching a Japanese documentary or a documentary of Singapore street scenes, that's the vibe they actually give me. But how would you describe your style?
Yeah, I mean, I think you pretty much captured it. Cinematic.
Okay.
At least that's the approach.
How do you find this style? Like, is it?
It's funny because
why am I asking this? Maybe I just give a little bit of context. For most of us, like for example, who started out as like, you know, taking photos for Instagram for fun, and then we usually take photos of what's in trend, the way we edit photos, we go with trends and stuff like that, and sometimes most of us, including myself, I'm guilty of that as well. We always edit photos based on what's in trend. But I feel that looking at his photos, right, I have a feeling, maybe I'm wrong, I have a feeling it never started out like that. Like it's intentional, and it's just so happened that the way he actually edits it, the way he actually photographs something, right, happens to be in trend. That's why he actually got a lot of popularity, got featured in Mothership, Must-Share News and things like that. Got obviously a lot of people commented on his photos positively. So that's the context, because I feel that it never started out for you, like unlike for myself, like it never started at, oh, this is in trend, so I'm actually doing it this way. So I want you to actually share more about that.
Okay. In 2016, my girlfriend and I went on our anniversary trip to like whatever island in the Philippines. It was in Cebu, if you guys are familiar. and I decided to document that trip. That's the first time that I essentially dabbled into video.
That video that you posted on YouTube.
Maybe it's in my yes. So
I did a lot of stalking, so
that was the first really like okay, I'll learn how to edit, piece together stuff, and all of that stuff. And then that was in December, and then February 2017 we went to Singapore. I did another travel video montage, whatever. And when I was doing that video, I realized that there are some frames in the video that I did which I really like, but in my head, this is going to work better as a still.
Okay.
So that's how it started, like with me getting interested into cinematic stuff. And then I did a bit more of research and like figured out, okay, maybe what if I want to do like photography but make it seem like a still from a movie.
Right.
And there are, at that time, I think there were very few literature in it. As in only a few articles talking about how you can do like cinematic stuff. And it's not, and you won't be getting like how to edit cinematic blah, 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 blah. It's pretty much articles telling you, oh, you want to do like the black bars, you want to do anamorphic ratio, but it wasn't as big as how maybe cinematic maybe is now. So that's how it started. It really came off of me dabbling with video and then realizing, okay, what if I do this as a photo?
Okay, cool. So that's when you actually started.
Yeah, I would say so.
Do you get into like, because since it's like, you know, cinematics, and whenever we talk about cinematics, we talk about movies, do you start to study about films and stuff like that?
Oh, my interest in films go way back, I feel.
Okay.
I mean, I guess also since I'm the designated creative artsy person in like my social circles.
Right.
Yeah, I've always been into that kind of stuff. I even took an introduction to film class back in uni. Okay. So that gave me an even deeper appreciation for how to look at films.
Nice.
So I've always been interested in it, but I didn't make the connection until like much later on.
And then now, do you actually like study up films, that kind of stuff?
I still I would still watch films like to study, to learn, but not like on an academic level, for example.
Right. Like not going into like all the what a film student probably will.
Yes, correct.
Will look at. So you study films, quote unquote, based on just watching and consuming.
Yes, but I mean, there's still a certain level of intentionality, but not to a level of like what a film student, film critic would be looking at. But I would still study, I mean, perspectives, composition, lighting.
Right. So what I want to ask is this: whenever you watch a new film, whether it's on Netflix or when you go to the theaters, when you watch a film and as you are watching it, think back a little bit. What goes through your mind when you consume a movie? Do you just consume and go with the flow with the story? Or do you watch for the frame? Do you watch for the colors? Do you watch for the angle and that kind of stuff behind your head?
I think there are, whenever I do consume media, there are two modes. Okay. So like, you can tell anyways right away that, okay, this movie you have to have a certain eye. You have to look at it with certain intentionality. Okay. Versus, okay, I'll just watch and see where the story goes. Yeah. So there are times when it suddenly turns on like, okay, I have to look at it this way. And there are times where like, okay, let's do this.
So these are probably the moments where you actually pick up certain things that you think, hey, this is cool, and I'll try to actually include it in my photography. Nice. So nowadays, when you actually go to like a certain place, I mean, I hope that we can travel again so that we can all go back to Japan and all that. But when you approach a scene, right, or like for example, when you plan to go to a certain location, other than PDFs and all that, what else do you usually research on? Like, do you research that particular location, the history behind the location, so that you know how to tell the story? Do you do that kind of research at all?
For example, for the
Let's talk about like Singapore, because these street scenes are like, you know, really nice. Like the one that you did there at Tanglin Hall.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. I think if I get the idea that like a certain place does have a certain significance history-wise, I try to go deeper into it. So like research a bit more. But if there's not much history, it's a matter of me getting a feel of the space and just trying to capture how I felt while I'm there.
So when you're there, you just go with the flow. I mean,
I'd
you
say
have
so.
some.
Yeah.
You have some pre-planned route, lah, but like you just go with.
Not even, to be honest.
Okay.
It's I mean, like for example, when I'd go with like friends, at every corner we'll be like, okay, where do we go? Here, there. It's a bit more spontaneous.
So what do you do? Like when you're there, right? Do you straight away, okay, come, let's shoot, turn on the camera, and then you start shooting? Or because I think I learned a little bit of I think one of those videos that I consume on YouTube is that probably one of the useful things now I'm training myself to do is when I go to a particular location, even though like there's really good light and you are like, you know, that you're very drawn to, and then you can't help it but to actually whip out your camera to shoot. A good tip that I actually hear is that try not to do that, like, but get yourself in the zone, in the scene of what's happening. Like take a few minutes or moments or whatever you need to at least be in the space so that you know you're present in the surrounding, you know what's happening, and then start to identify what catches your eye. Like, is that something that you do as well? Because last time, right, I would like, there's such good light and the light is gonna come down. So like, especially in Japan, like, cause everything is so nice and like whenever there's golden hour, I don't want to miss a shot. In the end, right, I live 24/7 behind the frame, and I realized that I wasn't experiencing the moment.
I think unconsciously, it's more of the latter, what you just said. So
Okay.
like, I think like because when I would go with my friends to like on photo walks, when we went for a photo walk,
Yeah.
it's my initial thought is usually I can get my camera and like start figuring out how to work scenes. But in reality, I have a lot of I would take a lot of time, like really just warming up to the space, and still not be getting enough and good enough shots first few minutes while still, I mean, after arriving. So yeah, definitely it makes sense to get a feel, understand what the atmosphere is like, how busy a place is, and all that stuff.
As you're taking those photos, right, do you visualize or sort of like, do you pre-plan like how you will actually edit this as you're taking the photos? Or are you someone who's more of like, you know, I'm just going to immerse myself fully, taking whatever that is in front of my frame, I'll think about editing later on, that kind of thing?
I always know how it's going to look like
Wow.
afterwards. I mean,
Because I have no idea how to do it.
I mean, I have to have that. It's the whole concept of visualization.
Right.
It just so happened that for visualization, for my visualization, editing takes up a big chunk of that visualization at the same time, because
Okay.
other photographers probably like 95% of the photo is just all straight out of camera, right?
Right.
So that's not the case for me.
So
I do it.
for someone who actually want to strive that, because I think that's very useful, how would you say, you know, like one can learn this kind of like pre-planning? Does it come with experience, or like do you think that there are certain techniques that you learn so that you can actually, when you see a scene, you kind of know
I
how you
think
will edit it?
it might be, it's going to sound too cliche, but you really just have to keep on shooting.
Okay.
until like eventually you learn the kind of visual language that you lean more towards. And then once you know your visual language, how you compose stuff, the colors that you find interesting, that will also inform how you visualize. Like I see a scene, and in my head I work out from my visual language, how do I work this scene? How do I frame this scene? So that's how it works, at least for me.
And so like when you see a scene, let's say for example the place actually has certain historical story behind it, you will work that scene to tell a particular story,
I guess.
or like it's just more of the technical aspect of the photo.
It depends, because there are some spaces that, like for example, I again going back to like going on photo walks with friends, where it's a bit more casual. But if there has to be a certain objective intentionality to it, then you also try to work it out into your frame to be able to tell that story better.
Cool. Do you camp for shots?
If I find that there's a really beautiful frame here, then I would. But oftentimes, I'm a hunter than a fisher, right?
You must be very fit, because hunter is very stamina draining.
Oh, my feet were cursing me throughout my whole Japan trip. You know those things that you get at 7-Eleven to help you, like you soak your feet in? Those were like very helpful.
Oh, yeah?
I mean,
I don't know it.
yeah, I mean, like, I don't know what they're called, but like a friend of mine told me while I was in Japan, like, hey, you try to find this if you have like sore feet. So like, yeah, I think you soak your legs in.
You travel light from day to day, like when you're in Japan?
In my bag,
Yeah.
I had my this thing, and then my 35-1/8, and then power bank.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah. I mean,
So you keep your lenses minimal?
I don't have a lot of lenses also. I have 5 lenses.
Okay, that's quite complete.
I mean, no, but it's a 28,
Okay.
35, 28-75. I have my 90 for my work, and I have a 14-24. So, but that's it. I don't have a tele with me.
But your go-to lens most of the time, that's always on the bottom.
28-75.
Nice. Nice. So far,
Wait, are you a hunter or a fisher?
me, I used to be a fisher, and then I regret.
Why? Wait,
Because
so when you fish, what do you look for?
so fish meaning like we camp, right? So like when in Japan, like even for portraits, maybe because like I'm still training myself to be more creative. Like even when I take portraits with my wife in Japan, or whether like street photos, right? I realized that when like many years back, I was like 100% fisher, to the point that right when I go back and I screen through my photos, like there were times where none of it eventually stood out to me, and therefore none of it was edited, and therefore none of it was actually eventually posted or made it to my portfolio.
I see.
Because I realized that at that point of time, I thought this would be like, it is the money shot, right?
I see. Okay.
And then I spent like maybe 30 minutes, sometimes without me knowing, 45 minutes actually passed, and I still couldn't get the subject that I wanted.
45 minutes?
Yeah.
Huh.
And then
Fiona must be very patient.
that would be a very nice way to say. Yeah. So and then I learned that, you know, so that this is what probably a lot of people mean, that photography is not about like capturing the moment that you want or you visualize in your head, because things don't happen that way. We live in a real world. Like a lot of things are out of your control. So I learned to be less of a fisher, and if I get what I visualize, that's great. But if I don't,
I learned to move on. And then after that, I started to realize that, hey, you actually get better shots that way that you never thought about when you're in that scene or in that area. And those were the photos that actually ended up in the portfolio instead of what I visualized in the first place. Do you experience that?
I mean, in all fairness, I haven't camped for that long. Like, maybe I also
This is why probably I'm actually doing this podcast selfishly for myself, because I want to learn from him.
I mean, I feel like 45 minutes is very long. Although I do remember, like, there was definitely this one instance, the classic Gion shot with the not Churrito, but whatever that pagoda is in Ninenzaka, Sanenzaka area. There's that pagoda shot, classic shot, that I was in there like from sunset until like
That
blue hour.
very near, next to Arabica, right? Very near.
I think.
On the way to Kiyomizu-dera.
For that time in particular, yes, I had to wait because I mean I really wanted like a good sunset or maybe a blue hour shot of the pagoda.
Right.
So then my girlfriend, my mom, and my younger brother were all just sitting there waiting for me. That was the only time, but because I really wanted that shot.
Yeah.
But other times, I mean, maybe it's because there are three of them who will get mad at me. So I couldn't wait for too long.
Yeah.
And
you're okay. Like, it's not like...
Yeah. I mean, it's more of me looking around, finding scenes that I find interesting. At night, finding light that I find interesting. But like for here in Singapore where I have more time to go around, maybe at most I'd wait 5 minutes.
Would you say that that's probably, based on your personal observations, is one of the weakness in most beginner photographers? Like, based on what I mentioned just now, like what I experienced is that most of us, we have this preconception of certain places that we want to hit. And because we want to hit those locations and have those money shots, how we visualized it, it basically take us out of the experience from that place, and therefore we didn't actually probably get the kind of shots that we really can get, like really maximize our time out of that places. Would you say so?
I feel there's a certain truth to that. I'm not sure if it's correct for me to say this, but I find myself not shooting a lot of classic frames. For one, because it's classic because everyone shoots it already. There's a whole shit ton of photographers who have done better frames of that that I feel like I can never achieve. So I let them have that. So that's why, if you go back to the Japan photo sets, I mean, there's really not much classic frames, like maybe 1, 2 per photo set or 3. Even in like also here in Singapore, I don't take a lot of the classic frames because I feel like a lot of people have done it already.
But you will go to those iconic places, but take other frames, take other scenes.
Yeah, maybe see what can be done, and then I later on realized that okay, these spots don't work, and then the spot where the classic frame was taken works. I mean, for that main reason, because that's the only spot that works. That's why it became a classic eventually.
Makes sense.
So yeah, that's why I end up with very different frames, quote unquote, because I tend not to go for classic ones.
Right. So right now, let's move on in terms of your dive a bit deeper in terms of photography journey, right? Because just now we talked about a lot of like achievements, awards, and features, and things like that. I'm sure all this, I mean, as a friend, and I think many of us, we don't have the privilege to actually witness, your day-to-day process. And by that I mean that, I feel that all these achievements, definitely they were not like overnight achievements, that kind of stuff, or like by just sheer luck. Share with us a little bit as art director, as a photographer, doing both professionally and also your own personal projects. Like maybe
a particular moment of a struggle that you actually went through that probably, in hindsight, serves you as a really fruitful lesson in terms of your growth in your photography journey? Is there anything like that you can recall? Could be recent, could be sometime back.
Like a struggle or a particular...
Or like a process that you realize that at a point of time, I don't think I can actually go far in my photography journey, but like in hindsight, that particular moment was like,
oh, a lot of...
propelled you forward.
I have a lot of those.
Okay, cool. So one of those actually stood out.
Like
that.
Earlier I said, right, that my second time visiting here, I realized that, okay, a lot of talents from all over the world go to Singapore. So later on, like once I was all settled in and I started learning about this food photographer, that food photographer, and seeing their body of work and realizing how much I'm actually lacking, how much I need to step up. I mean, not to say that I'm at that level, but it's always something that I try to strive strive for. But yeah, I always experience a lot of self-doubts whether I should continue doing this, because like there are all these photographers doing the kind of work that I want to be doing, but I haven't achieved.
Do you still have such moments?
Definitely.
Okay.
As in, really, there's a whole a long way for me to go before I get to a level of the guys I look up to, for example. Not just with my food stuff, but also with my travel and street stuff.
So if we were to look in, because I know like some photographers, they do things like, maybe a particular project that they envision themselves doing in 5 years, that kind of stuff. Do you do that for yourself?
Oh, I don't.
Something that you wanna.
I mean, I just know that I want to move my body of work closer to what this photographer has, for example, or what this photographer has.
Right.
I mean, because I cannot definitely just copy what John Heng is doing, for example. Right. But I want to bring my work to that level, for example.
And so I think this is a good segue for me to ask, who are your inspirations?
There you go. So John Heng, for example, that photographer. I also like the work of Braden and the guys at Alinea Collective. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Just so you know, I'm not very familiar with these names, but
that photographer is DA Photographer on Instagram. There's again Braden. You can search for Alinea Collective. Back home, I still look up to Mylene Chong a lot.
Okay.
For food photographers, I have them top of my head. Travel, street stuff, it's actually a bit of everything. There's also Pat K.
Oh, Pat K, yeah.
As a big inspiration, especially like with him starting his YouTube and stuff. And learning a bit more about his process and all that jazz, as in very inspiring.
His journey, his struggles and all that, right? Recent videos,
Yeah, and then at the same time, I mean, filmmakers have a strong influence on me. So yeah, I mean, you have Wong Kar-wai, Wes Anderson, definitely.
Yeah, okay.
And I'm a big fan of Tarantino.
Oh, okay. Did you watch his latest?
I haven't seen Hollywood. I haven't seen. I was about to see it, but then I realized they took it off Netflix. Or
did they?
Was it in Netflix? I think at some point it was in. I think so, but yeah, it's not there anymore, so I haven't seen.
Probably it's available Netflix elsewhere, but you got a VPN. So.
Yeah, I don't have the whole jazz, so.
So other than just photographers, you find inspiration from like movies as well. How about music?
Music, it's something that I recently learned to look into because there's this Sony photographer, Wesley. I went into one of his portrait workshops, and I got to talking with him. He was giving me advice, and that's how he taught me that for him, he finds his groove literally by thinking of a song that would play out well for this particular shoot, for example.
Okay. I see.
So it's something that I've been trying actively recently, especially for my my portrait stuff. Like, okay, what head, what music, what song, what soundtrack should be playing in my head while I'm doing this shoot.
Do you play it during the shoot?
A lot of times, no. But in my before going to the shoot, it's on repeat in my head.
I see.
So it's on repeat so that it's just playing in my head whenever I'm doing the shoot.
When you do street photography, let's say for example you're doing alone, do you listen to music or shooting?
Yes, a lot of lo-fi stuff. Just to
So it's like chill vibe.
yeah.
And then you basically what you're seeing feels like a movie in your head kind of thing, right?
Everything looks like B-roll.
Cool. And let's talk about creative wrap.
Okay.
I think it's a very big topic, especially amongst photographers. It's a challenge that I think a lot of artists as well, photographers definitely go through, especially during these 1.5 years of us being in pandemic, being locked down, challenges. How has it affected you personally? Like, do you go through that?
Definitely in both my food stuff and my travel street stuff. For my food stuff, it's generally manageable because if you get a brief, you have a prompt. So one way or another, you have your way through it.
Yeah.
But for my travel and street stuff, it can be harder to manage, but it might sound cliche, but really the advice is to just get off your ass and just go out to shoot.
So what do you do? Like at a point of time, we were in like lockdown, like then after that heightened alert, with a short period of phase 2, we could actually go out and shoot. But you know, what do you do during that period when
I'm just inside?
Yes, correct. Like to get yourself out of creative rut.
At least for me, since I mentioned earlier that editing is a big it takes up a big chunk of my visualization, my process, right? So I get to explore different ways of editing. So at least I have that. Yeah. Even if like I have a photo released already, like I would revisit them every now and then just to see what I could have improved actually.
And also like revisit all those moments in Japan lah.
Yes, correct.
Very sad, right? Every time I edit.
Yeah, it's a bunch of me just shaking my head.
Like, why am I doing this to myself? At the same time, I'm actually enjoying this.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. What would be your take on authentic art? I'm asking this because I think now we are the social media generation. You know, sometimes we take photos because we FOMO and then we feel that it's actually in trend, and that's where we take certain like photos a certain ways and things like that. But for yourself, in terms of photography philosophy, what would be your take of authentic art?
I feel like you just have to make sure that your point of view shows in your photography. Like, to me, like for example, I'd go to my Discover feed looking at this profile and that profile. I would look at them and see if this might be a bit controversial, but I feel like I would see like this guy at least has a way of looking at things,
right?
Or if this guy is an Instagrammer.
Okay.
And of course, I tend to look at what this other guy with he has a vision that he wants to share to the world. That I lean more towards that because there's always something to be learned with how people see the world. At least for me, that's how I feel. So at least as long as I see that that shows, I'm okay with that. but I do. I mean, admittedly, to be honest, I have negative feelings towards like if I see an Instagrammer profile, and I'll be like, okay, this again. Yeah. So like, okay, a few scrolls, and then you realize it's an Instagram. I'm like, never mind. Then I move on.
Yeah. But for yourself, what do you think about like hacking the algorithm of social media? Do you do that? Like when you edit, when you take photos, do you take into account like would this work on Instagram, for example? Or do you because there are also a lot of photographers who like, I don't care about that. If it works, it works. I do it more for my own personal portfolio, like for Behance and things like that.
To be honest, I can't deny the fact that I still do consider numbers. But at the same time, my Instagram accounts have very different purpose. My food account, considered my main account, is for potential clients to see my work. And then my food stuff, my travel stuff, my other than food stuff, is meant to educate and inform and just share. That's why like before and after and all that stuff. Settings always given, right?
Yeah. That's nice. It's really very educational.
So I really hate the algorithm. I don't want to get into the whole thing. But I'm not too big into the numbers, although I still get affected by it every now and then.
Right.
Like I see a photo that I really like, it gets less than the usual amount of likes that I would get. I'd still think about it compared to like when I see my other photographer friends getting this much engagement and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, if I like this photo, regardless of how many likes it got, if I know that this photo puts me in the right direction where I want to take my body of work, I'm okay with that. I learned something from taking this photo, editing this photo. I'm fine with that.
Well, so thanks for actually mentioning about the before and after that you actually did, because that's what I want to touch on as well. Because I thought that was pretty ingenious. Like it's simple. You just did before and after, but you also highlighted like, basically you highlighted parts of the photo, and that actually gave me certain insights when I look at that. Like, what's the thought process that you actually went through during the editing? What made you actually want to do that? Because most of the time people actually would do like YouTube videos, tutorials, that kind of thing. What made you want to do that, and how it got you inspired to do it in that format? I guess that's what would be my question.
For one, I feel like videos are very tedious to do. I mean, to be honest, I feel like, very recently, like with Instagram's move to be more like TikTok, I've been considering now making my own channel.
Oh, cool.
So, but still just all in my head.
Yeah.
But yeah, videos are very tedious to do. So I figured I want to find a different way to be able to educate people, because I have a professor back in uni who would tell us that I forgot which author he was quoting, but he basically said that whatever you know, you empty it out to the world so that you're empty, so that you can all just take in again and keep on learning. So I've adapted that mindset. That's why I don't really mind like sharing information, sharing what I know, because that's also the best way for me to find new things to learn. Otherwise, if I keep everything in, it's all just in me. I feel like it's a disservice to the world to not be sharing all these things.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you guys are not following him, right, go and check him out on Other Than Food. Like, I think there are a lot of insights in terms of like his thought processes when he actually edits those photos. And yeah, I'm one of those people who actually consume a lot of that. Like,
Thank you.
So yeah, so that's probably wraps up the main part of the questions. The next part I want to go to, right, is more of kind of rapid fire, a bit more lighthearted. But sometimes my rapid fire, right, it's not really rapid. Sometimes it can get a bit lengthy as well. So yeah.
Okay, we'll see how it goes.
Yes, this question actually comes from one of the people in the audience. Because I actually...
I saw.
Yeah, so...
You posted?
Yeah, correct. So I kind of rephrased it. But I'd like to ask, like, for someone who actually wants to up his or her IG game, Okay, tell us, probably from the top of your head, one tip to enhance your photo. Like one tip that you can easily enhance your photo.
One tip to enhance your photo. Oh my god.
When you're shooting.
For like say for my food stuff, my
Anything.
main tip would be to make sure that you have your specular highlights. Make sure that your food is looking wet, looking fresh.
Okay.
Because
For those who are not very familiar with specular highlights, you mean
it's like those little shiny things, little highlights that you see if something is wet.
Okay.
Pretty much. I mean, badly put, that's a specular highlight.
so like, for example, a bunch of grapes or apple, like the water droplets.
Yeah, for example.
Okay.
So you have to have those because other food photos, like it's you know right away it's bad if you see like it's all very flat, not much contrast in a sense that there's not enough tonal range going on. So yeah, but specular highlights definitely is I think the number one thing that you should be looking out for.
Okay, cool. So the next thing would be this one. I'll leave it to you whether you want to take it, whether you want to talk about food photography or travel or street.
Okay.
Up to you. But one underrated photo trick that you feel that is not done enough, but when done, it probably will really enhances the photo a lot. Underrated.
For me, it's fixed geometry. Just with a click of a button, auto geometry works great always.
You mean
In Lightroom or in Camera Raw?
Okay. So you mean like post editing?
At least for me. Or are we talking about like strictly with the camera?
So okay. So fixed geometry, definitely one. I agree with you. But how about when you're shooting, like when people when they go to like shoot street photography, certain framing that you feel that is underrated.
That is tough.
Anything that you see?
I mean, to be honest, I feel like I don't have a lot of tricks
Okay.
in my bag.
Okay.
It's really just a matter of how you see things, I feel.
Like
What a bad
capturing
answer. Like capturing light. No, but I mean,
That's fine.
I think that can be a tip, but it's not necessarily underrated. But I mean, since photography is etymology-wise, it's about writing with light.
Right.
You have to have good light.
Definitely. How about one overrated trick that you see?
This one I know.
Yeah. Okay.
Leading lines.
Okay.
Especially in Singapore, where you have so much great architecture. I mean, no offense to like the great architecture around,
definitely.
but leading lines, good lord.
Okay. Like
It's-
one
it's-
angle. leading lines,
It's such a pitfall for a lot of beginner photographers, I feel.
Definitely leading lines. I feel that it has its own place, but sometimes,
Of course.
Yeah.
I also use it.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah, but don't overuse it, please. Leading lines.
What angle, leading lines.
Correct.
Like that's it. You take and then you walk off. That kind of thing.
Correct. Yeah. It will
I know
always
exactly
do
what you
great
mean.
algorithm-wise, but
And then you punch out the colors, clarity, and everything. Right?
and then you move all your blues to teal.
Oh yeah. Okay. How about a latest photography related book that you are reading or you've read and found inspiring?
We were just talking about this before we started recording. I feel like the Magnum contact sheets definitely has a whole lot of insight into like all these photographers' visualization,
Right.
how their thinking process.
So we both know what the book is all about. It's something that I would love to actually get one myself down the road. But please share like what's the book?
Oh, okay. So Magnum contact sheets. I think they recently released a paperback, so it's cheaper. That's why I also got my copy. But it basically shows you the different contact sheets of all these Magnum photographers, as in all the way from Henri Cartier-Bresson. As in, you see his contact sheets for some of his most iconic photographs. And also other Magnum photographers throughout the years. So in the film days, you have say 36 shots right in a roll. So your negatives, they would in whoever is developing, or if the photographer is developing it, they would cut up their rolls. and then lay it out in a photo paper and then expose that photo paper to get their contact sheet. So it's essentially a bunch of thumbnails of what you took from the roll. And then an editor, for example, can have a look at that contact sheet, or the photographer himself, and figure out which is the best frame. Right. And then that's the frame, that particular shot, that gets enlarged or gets printed properly. Because it's if you print everything, it's a waste.
Yeah. So going through the contact sheets itself in that book.
Yeah, I mean, because you get to see what this particular photographer would take before and after, figure out how that person was working out the scene and why this particular photo was chosen.
Yeah.
It's definitely very, very, very insightful.
It's basically the behind the scenes of all these notable photographers, their thought
Correct.
processes.
Yes.
Before the final product, right, that you actually see.
That's the best way to put it.
Yeah. So how about name some of your, probably one of your favorite photography channel?
Favorite photography channel?
That you are actively consuming recently, probably.
The one that it's been the most, no, I can't say, because the most recent one I've just been binging on Gerald Andan's video stuff.
Yeah.
Because again, exploring the whole YouTube stuff, right? But before that, I wanna say, I mean, constantly. Oh wait, it has to be photography.
Yeah, a photography channel.
A photography channel.
Or do you not? I mean,
I feel like not recently, because like at least ever since the whole Japan thing started for me, it's all been just abroad in Japan. Tokyo Creative.
I watched that as well. Because that one is like reliving moments and like discovering what are some of the places that we have not been and we wish that we'll go there.
If you haven't watched Journey Across Japan, as in his first leg, where he biked from Yamagata all the way to Kagoshima, I think.
That's nice.
It's a very good series. Yes. But photography...
That's the third season, I think.
No. The first one. As in, he literally biked.
The first one.
As in the original one.
The original. That one's very nice.
That's still my favorite Journey Across Japan.
That's the most epic. Yeah.
But in terms of photography, I think... the closest would be Pat K's channel, I feel. Very insightful. Lots of educational stuff for people to absorb. So
on that point, which particular video you think, based on your memory, that you would recommend the audience to watch?
To get started with, like if we're talking Pat K, maybe his most recent one actually is quite good. It's part of his visual patterns, visual language series on color theory. Because I mean, color is a very big thing for me.
Yes.
So I feel like it's a good start.
Yeah, I enjoyed that particular video as well.
Right?
Although it appears basic, I feel it's very important.
I mean, it's very, I'd say, because I have an art degree, so it's very on the surface, I feel, but it's a very good start.
Cool. Do you watch Sean Tucker?
Yes, I do. Not his recent stuff. Ever since he moved out of London, it was getting a bit very personal, I feel. I mean,
I understand.
No offense to him. I mean, he do his own thing, right? But like his other philosophical stuff, very big brain stuff, I love those at the same time. Yeah. I'm still wondering why I haven't gotten my copy of his new book.
Oh, you bought already?
Yeah. I pre-ordered, and I have another.
I think it's gonna be.
No, it was supposed to ship like August 10.
Yeah,
or
but
something.
I think I visited the website recently. I think the date kind of changed to October something.
I see. Okay.
I could be wrong, but
yeah. I mean, because I follow this one person who already got his copy.
Oh.
Also in Singapore. So I'm like,
okay.
I was checking my mailbox like every day.
I love his videos, like on all the photography philosophies. Each time I actually listen to them, really inspires me to go out and take photos.
Same, man. Yeah, same really goes cool. For me.
So, last two questions. First one, so for those who actually want to step in the industry, right, like for photography, for example, basically your juniors to be, let's just say, what's the best advice that you've gotten throughout your journey so far that you think that you would pass it along to them?
best advice that
that you've gotten
that
so
I've
far?
gotten.
That sticks with you.
I think I mentioned it already. Make sure that there's enough tonal range in your shots. So like, it's a very technical kind of advice.
Alright.
But yeah, I make sure that your lights and darks are there just to keep everything dynamic. But like if we're going big brain stuff, to be honest, it's really just about keeping at it and just really shooting until you find your groove, you find your own vision, and until you're able to translate that to your photos.
So, I mean, for those people who already started, you know, have actually been in the industry for a few years, for example, like 3-4 years, they're stuck in the career. Would your advice be, you know, what would be another advice if, let's say, for example, for them to be to succeed in the industry?
I feel like to be honest, I feel like I can't be giving that advice because I'm also in the same boat.
Okay.
But currently, like my mindset really is to just stick with it because I am hoping, I'm optimistic that one way or another, you move past it and you'll be able to take your body of work where you want to take it. It's a matter of like really just sticking to it, embracing the process. Because especially like with the whole social media thing going on, it's so easy to get caught up with he is doing that, she is doing this, be comparing yourself. But at the end of the day, especially for if it's like your full-time work, you have no choice but to really just stick it out.
Cool. That's really great advice. And with that, on that note, I think it's the perfect point to wrap this podcast up. It's been an incredible honor to have you on the show. Really, Nikko.
If you say so.
I'm not kidding. Like it's really, I really learned a lot from this conversation. Although we've been friends for quite some time now. So yeah, I will actually leave his socials again. Where can they actually find you? Would you like to let them know again?
If you're more interested in food, you go to @Nikko Pascua, NIKKOPASCUA. Or if you're more into travel and street, you go to @OtherThanFood.
Yes. So I'll leave those links in the show notes and make sure to actually check them out. And if you're actually watching this on YouTube, make sure you actually leave your thoughts and your questions in the
down
comments.
below.
Yeah, so that we both of us can actually help them out if there's, say, for example, there's any questions. And then if you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Podcasts and things like that, leave a review, 5-star, probably. If not, yeah, thanks so much for actually watching and listening, and then we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.